It was an exciting time nearly 500 years ago. People had learned that the world was round, not flat as they had always believed. Ships would not drop over the edge of the world and disappear. A new world had been discovered, which must be explored and conquered. In England in 1584, Walter Raleigh dreamed of great opportunities and wealth in this new world. He urged Queen Elizabeth to claim the new world for England, and he met with her with a plan for the Roanoke voyages. Queen Elizabeth sent ships led by Philip Amadis and Arthur Barlow to explore the middle Atlantic coast for a suitable site to plant a colony. After 69 days at sea, on July 13, 1584, they anchored off the Outer Banks of what is now North Carolina. Amadis and Barlow described the land. "It is very sandy, low toward the water side, but full of grapes, as the very beating and surge of the sea overflowed them, of which we found such plenty. As well there as in all places else, both on the land and the green soil of the hills, as in the plains, as well on every little shrub, as also climbing toward the tops of the high cedars, that I think in all the world the like abundance is not to be found." Behind the reeds and tall cedars, watchful and wary eyes followed the Englishman's every move. 4 days later, they were visited by the chief of the Roanoke Indians. For 2 months, they traded with the Indians and explored the land. In October, the explorers returned to England and brought with them 2 Indians, Manteo and Wanchese, who had befriended the English. Barlow gave glowing reports of the paradise they had seen. Walter Raleigh was pleased with Barlow's report on the New World and was knighted for his discoveries by Queen Elizabeth. The name Virginia was given to the new land in honor of Queen Elizabeth, England's Virgin Queen. The second voyage to Roanoke Island was organized by Sir Walter Raleigh in 1585. Sir Richard Grenville commanded this voyage, and on August the 17th, 7 ships landed 108 men on the island to start the first colony and to establish military foothold for England. Captain Ralph Lane was appointed governor of the first colony. He was very impressed with this new country, and he said, "It is the goodliest and most pleasing territory of the world, for the soil is of a huge and unknown greatness, and very well people endowed, though savagely, and the climate so wholesome that we have not had one sick since we touched the land. If Virginia had but horses and kine in some reasonable proportion, I dare assure myself, being inhabited with English, no realm in Christendom were comparable to it." The men set to work building a small earthen fort, which they called the New Fort in Virginia. Despite Governor Lane's glowing first impressions of the country, the men soon became very unhappy. At first, their relations with the Indians were friendly, but because the Englishmen would not grow or gather their own food, they continued to be dependent upon the Indians for food. They began to rob and destroy the Indians' fish traps rather than make their own. Food became scarce, and their relationship with the Indians came to the breaking point, and there was open warfare. Sir Richard Grenville returned to England for supplies. Somehow the colonists made it through the severe winter, but their provisions were extremely low. Grenville was delayed in England because of accidents to his ships. The colonists were starving and desperate when the news came that Sir Francis Drake was off the coast with his mighty fleet of 23 ships. Governor Lane went aboard Drake's flagship and told him of their terrible plight. Sir Francis Drake was the first Englishman to sail around the world and was the most famous of the Elizabethan sea captains. He was generous in his offer to take all the colonists back to England with him, and they were glad to go and leave behind their bitter experiences. Only 2 weeks after they left, Sir Grenville returned to Roanoke Island with supplies on his ship named Tiger. He and his men searched in vain for the colony with no results. Disappointed but determined to hold the land for Queen Elizabeth, he left 15 men with provisions for 2 years on the island and returned to England. Sir Walter Raleigh would not give up his dream. He was not discouraged by the failure of this first colony, so he set about organizing another expedition. This group of 117 people included women and children. Sir Walter Raleigh promised 500 acres of land to each man that went to the New World. Artist John White, who had been on the previous voyages, was named governor. When the 3 ships carrying the colony of 117 people arrived on Roanoke Island in July 1587, they found a dismal scene. The fort was in ruins, and the houses were deserted. Only a skeleton remained as a reminder of the 15 men who had been left there by Sir Richard Grenville. John White reported, "We found none of them, nor any sign that they had been there. Saving only we found the bones of one of the 15, which the sages had slain long before." The colonists went to work rebuilding the fort and repairing the houses. Crops were planted and a blacksmith shop and weaving loom set up. Contact was made with the friendly Croatoan Indians. The other Indian tribes continued to be hostile, and one of the colonists was even killed. On August the 13th, Manteo, the friendly Indian who had visited Queen Elizabeth in England, was baptized. 5 days later, on August the 18th, 1587, the first English child was born in the New World. Her parents, Ananias and Eleanor Dare, named her Virginia. Little Virginia Dare's grandfather was the governor, John White. Later in August, the colonists asked Governor White to return to England for supplies. Reluctantly, he agreed and promised to return the following spring. Before he left, he asked the colonists to carve, somewhere in the settlement, the name of their new location if they were to move before he returned. If they were in trouble, they were to carve a cross above the name of their destination. On August 27th, John White sailed to England with all 3 ships to obtain needed supplies. When he returned to England, he found the country was preparing for war against Spain and the Great Armada. Therefore, no ships were available to send to help the colony. Back on Roanoke Island, the colonists waited desperately for White's return with the badly needed supplies. A year later, Governor White, without supplies, was able to board a merchant ship which was headed for the West Indies. It took the ship 2.5 years to reach the island. As they climbed the sandy bank toward the settlement, they found crow carved on a tree. At the site, they found the houses had been taken down and the place abandoned for a long time. On one of the posts was carved the word Croatoan, but it didn't have a cross carved above it. They continued to search the island to no avail. Perhaps the colonists had gone to live with the friendly Indians on the Croatoan Island. With plans to sail to Croatoan Island, the weather became very stormy and the ship was blown in the opposite direction. They never reached Croatoan Island. With a heavy heart and a great sadness, Governor White went back to England, never to return to the New World, never to see his little granddaughter, Virginia Dare, again. What happened to the colony? Were they killed by hostile Indians? Did they wander away from the colony and die of starvation? Or did they go to Croatoan Island to live with the friendly Indians? We'll never know. And the mystery of the lost colony will forever go unsolved. What happened to little Virginia Dare? The Indians told this legend of the white doe. The harsh winter had come, and there was very little food for the colonists to eat. They couldn't survive another winter in this new world. The colonists took their meager belongings and bits of food and went with Manteo to his Croatoan Island to live with the Indians who had befriended them. Virginia's parents, Eleanor and Ananias, wrapped her as warmly as possible and took care of her the best they could. Life was hard, and many of the colonists died, including Virginia's parents. After their death, Virginia was raised by the Indians and given an Indian name, Wainoa.
Hush, you boy, don't you cry, oh, you pretty little baby.
Wainoa lived as an Indian and learned their ways from Manteo. She grew into a beautiful young maiden with golden hair and blue eyes, like her English parents. She was loved by all the Indian tribe. A handsome young Croatoan brave named Okisko fell in love with Wainoa, and she loved him in return. They spent many happy hours together, walking along the seashore, planning their wedding and life together. In the Indian tribe, there was a wicked witch doctor named Chico. He was very jealous of Okisko and wanted Wainoa for his own wife. Using his magic spells, Chico turned Wainoa into a beautiful white doe. Now Okisko could not marry her. Okisko was heartbroken. He loved Wainoa and wanted her back as the girl he loved. He watched the white doe as she ate from the low-growing trees and rested on the shore. Okisko traveled far away from the home to another tribe. Here he talked to a medicine man who was an enemy of the wicked Chico. Okisko asked for help to break the spell that had been cast on Wainoa. The medicine man gave him a magic silver arrow to shoot the white doe through the heart. This would break the spell, and the doe would turn back into the lovely Wainoa. Returning in haste to the island, Akisco found the white doe on the beach, looking out into the sea. She did not see Akisco. He took aim, and with his bow and the magic silver arrow, and shot her through the heart. She fell to the ground, and Akisco ran to her, assured that the spell had been broken. Yes, the spell had been broken. The white doe had been turned back into the beautiful Wainoa, but she wasn't breathing. She lay there dead. The medicine man did not tell Akisco that she would die. Akisco was beside himself with grief. The white doe has never left the Outer Banks. The white ghost deer appears at midnight and will lead you to the seashore. She lifts her head and looks back at the sandy banks. Is she looking for her lost love, Akisco? Then slowly she looks out to the sea. Could it be that she is thinking of England and her grandfather, John White, lost to her so many years ago? No one knows, but if you visit the Outer Banks of North Carolina, perhaps at midnight you might catch a glimpse of the white doe as she stands looking out at the crashing waves and far across the sea.
Hush, you boy, don't you cry. Go to sleepy little baby. When you wake, you shall have all the pretty little horses, blacks and bays, dapples and grays, coach and 6 little horses, blacks and bays, dapples and grays, coach and 6 little horses. Hush, you boy, don't you cry. Go to sleepy little baby. When you wake, you'll have sweet cake and all the pretty little horses. Oh, brown and a gray and a black and a bay and a coach and 6 little horses. A black and a bay and a brown and a gray and a coach